were talking about how the stress that we've all been under, and this is a global thing. We have all been not only subject to this pandemic that's been going on for a year now. There's also been political discord for the past couple of years, and I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. It's been stressful. So we've all, everyone in the world has been subjected to this compression. And it would be nice if it would turn us into diamonds, but in the meantime, there's a lot of stress and pressure going on. So many of us are trying to listen to our bodies. We're trying to find some equilibrium, some balance, but many people might not even know that this is something that they could be doing. What happens if you don't pay attention to the signals that your body's giving you?
Well, quite often that's when sickness occurs. Because if we back up for a minute, because thank you for asking this. If we back up for a minute, Chinese medicine and other ancient traditions believe that disease begins in the energy field, and that energy field is real. We've been able to measure it. And before it manifests as a physical issue. And I think that the price we pay for ignoring the voice, let's just say, if you're finding that, I use the gut because I just see so many people with intestinal and stomach problems and that kind of thing. But it's like when we ignore, I'll use an analogy of maybe you find a little smoldering something, and if we ignore that smoldering something around here where I live, it turns into forest fires. And so that's an analogy that I think if there's something that is recurring for us physically, I think it's important to pay attention to that. I think people can try some of these vagal tone techniques first. I think that is definitely, one way to go. But the take home, and this is what I tell people all the time, if it is persisting, you need to go and get it checked out. But better yet, the more we can do for preventative medicine through proper self-care and activating that vagus nerve, that's critical. Because I want to touch on something that you said too. One of my favorite books of all time is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And if I had to give the world an assignment right now, I would give the world, you need to read it or reread it. Because those four agreements are so powerful. If we could begin to look at each other from the lens of, be impeccable with your word, think before you speak. We've all got opinions, and there's a lot of strong opinions on both sides, as we know. But I think so often that people don't realize they may be coming from fear. Is it just observations? But if we think of being impeccable with our own word, thinking before we speak, don't make assumptions. There's a lot of that going on right now. Stop for a minute. It's kind of like thinking, when we say walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. Okay. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. And finally, do your best. And think of, this is another key thing. I always loved Gandhi's saying, if you want to be the change, or be the change you want to be in the world. What that means is if we can change our own frequency, our own vibration, going back to feeling gratitude, love, peace, every one of those emotions has a frequency to it, and we're radiating that out. And we are all connected. And we know this. We know the heart has the ability to access information from far beyond our five senses. Okay. And again, HeartMath's been doing some phenomenal research around all of that. But for each of us, we have a responsibility to think. I mean, it goes back to some, kind of the golden rule, treat the other person the way you'd like to be treated. And if we can start to, even if it means that you have a friend that has a different viewpoint than you do, is it worth ending the friendship? I mean, people have done that. It's been a lot of that. And is it really worth it? We need to be working together right now. And I think when we become cognizant of how we're feeling, if we're spending a lot of time being irritable or angry or anxious or depressed or any of that, we need to change our own frequency. And it can be really relatively easy to do by picking your attitude and then picking that vibration and then knowing that that's what you're sending out to the field. You're also helping yourself when you do that. Your heart's going to thank you. Then your vagus nerve's going to be activated more often. You're going to feel better. So I think that's some important stuff for people to kind of start to consider.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And thank you for sharing the 4 agreements. Those are the words to live by. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're just about out of time, sadly, because
Yes.
I'd love to continue the conversation. But I want to make sure that I mention your website. That is advancedhealingenergetics.com. And I wonder, we've talked about a lot of things, but I'm sure there's a lot we've left out. What is still floating around on your mind that you want to make sure that we do discuss before we wrap it up?
I got a great story for you.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so this is what happens when you don't listen to your intuition. And this is embarrassing, but I feel I'm going to share it with people. So one of my fun things to do in my off time is I ride an adventure bike. It's a motorcycle. It's a Triumph. And so about 5 years ago, it was springtime. I was going to take the bike out for a first ride because we have winter. And I pulled it out of the garage and I kind of angled it differently than I normally do. We've got a sloping driveway. And anybody who rides is going to sit there and go, ugh. And so I had my kickstand uphill instead of downhill. And as I'm starting to put my leg over the bike, the voice said very clearly, that's not a good idea. Because that's how I get downloads sometimes. And as I do that, I lost my balance a little bit. Of course, you can figure out what else the rest of it. So I dumped it. Okay. And I ended up breaking a rib as a result. I mean, I slammed into the concrete driveway with a very heavy bike on top of me. So that's an extreme case of not listening. But for me, I think the biggest thing is when you get the voices, they will be quiet, but I think at least for me, it will sometimes become a little more insistent. As I like to say, I'll get the psychic toothpicks beside my head, like, hello. And when I ignore those, then I get the 2x4. So I'm hoping that people have a sense of just really starting to tune in. You know, if you can get back to that place of feeling peace in your heart and practice these ways of, bringing the vagus nerve, into tone, your heart's going to thank you. Your whole body's going to thank you. Your frequency goes up. You have an effect on the collective because we're all connected. We are being made to think that we're disconnected right now, that we're separate, and we're not. And it's, again, what we do for ourselves in a positive way can have a profound effect on the people around us. So
absolutely. Yeah. And it prevents that 2x4. I know exactly what you're talking about. Thanks for listening. Check out Castle Gate, a novel based on my own ancestral healing journey at lisabonese.com. In 1921, 4 men set off from Scotland to the United States. Will Garrock, his brother Pete, his son Willie, and his nephew Thomas, all coal miners. They left behind the miners' rows and the nationwide mining strike with its soup kitchens. Their destination was Castlegate, Utah, where they had kin to welcome them before sending for their wives and children. They prospered in America, working in one of the finest mines in Utah. Until that tragic day, March 8th, 1924. Disaster struck. 3 explosions trapping 171 men inside. Rescue crews worked tirelessly for days, but sadly, they could not save a soul. Women were widowed and children were orphaned, and some never recovered from their broken hearts. Castlegate is the true and tragic saga of a Scottish family whose dreams of finding their fortunes in the bountiful coal mines of Castlegate, Utah during the Prohibition era explode in one of the most devastating mine disasters in American history. Learn more at lisabonnace.com.